Thank you for joining us tonight, or if it's morning or afternoon your time, welcome. My name's Nash. I'm going to talk a little bit more about myself a little bit later, but we want to introduce what it is we're doing. Basically, our project is called Pole Position OS. So it's an amalgamation of my expertise in flow and peak performance, and also Xevi's experience and expertise as a Formula One racing director for over 23 years of experience. So the idea is to pull out everything that we know, both from our experiences, and teach it to corporate teams, run workshops, or speaking engagements, so that you can learn about how do these people, how can you engineer flow so that your team can run like a peak performance team, like F1. All right, I'm gonna hand this over to Devi.
Yeah, hello everybody. My name is Xevi Pujolar, and from my side, straight after university, I started in Girona, and then straight was into motorsport. My professional career has been all over with motorsport, over 30 years now, and as Nash was saying, about 23 years is in Formula One. When I started my career in motorsport, initially it was in go-kart, so I did all the junior series from go-kart until Formula One, always working trackside, so trying to extract the performance of drivers and car or go-kart at the track. And then yeah, I think it was good starting in a junior series because it's giving you, is the teams are smaller, so it's easier to get an overview of how everything is working, a bit more touch to the reality when you go in Formula One. We'll go through later, but everything is becomes quite big. So then in 2002, I got into Formula One, and once I got into Formula One as well, always part of the race team, and then in Formula One, starting as a performance engineer, then race engineer, senior race engineer, then chief race, head of track engineering, up to racing director. And during all these positions, when you are a performance engineer, here I was focused more on the data, on the tools, on the analysis, trying to understand, get an interpretation of what's happening with the car, with the driver on the track, and trying to find more performance. When you're working as a race engineer, then is working more on the driver and the car setup. Here, working with multiple drivers in junior series, but then also more in Formula One, and different drivers, different type of experience levels. Every driver can be a different wall. You need to understand on the way how they feel the car, how they experience, and what is the best way for them to perform with a given car in some given conditions. So I think all this is part of the learning process and getting more experience. Then going to chief race or head of track engineering. Now he's working more building the team of engineers, and he's not extracting the performance of a car and a driver, but extracting the performance of, if it's a team of two cars, the entire team. And it will be a group of engineers working at the track, a group of engineers supporting from the factory, and then also the link with the different departments at the factory. So he's more just putting together all these, what we'll talk about, high performance teams to work together. And finally, on my stages on racing director, then here is not only about only engineers, but we have got engineers, we have got technicians, mechanics. There is logistics involved. There is infrastructure. So it's the whole race, the whole entire race team, and how to get the best out of it, the best performance of the entire team, working together then with the factory. Now, currently, I'm not racing in 2025, and I'm just in a transition period to see what is next. If I continue my future in Formula One or in a different racing series, something that I'm considering at the moment, and we'll see. What do you now, Nash?
Thank you, Chavi. All right. My name is Nash Maiwela. My background is psychology, so I graduated psychology And my career started actually in publishing. I was working for a publishing company for 7.5 years. I was doing marketing, working with authors. Then eventually I transitioned and started working online, did consulting for SaaS startups, specific on marketing and partnerships. Eventually, I got into outdoor industry, worked for outdoor magazines, and during COVID, when I had a lot of time for introspection, I finally decided to start my own company, which was it was a podcast media production company where we produced narrative podcasts, like audio journalism style for brands, for companies. However, this entire time, I was obviously like into rock climbing. And I've always been obsessed with flow. I was always curious what that state was. And so, especially during COVID, I really got into the rabbit hole of like, did more research about flow and read a lot of books and podcasts. At that time, there was not a lot of information that was available for me. Um, Eventually, I trained, worked for Flow Center. It's one of the world's largest, or not the world's top organization in coaching and research in the psychology and neuroscience of flow. At that time, I was working for them. I'd also got my training with Cameron. I'm the founder of Flow Center. And then eventually I started my own practice, which is my own consulting company. So yeah, a lot of my experience in flow is not just you through training, but it was more so my personal experience as well, working in startups, building my own company, and in rock climbing and practicing Ashtanga, more so experiential. And while I was building my own company, I was learning a lot about how to build a high performance team, and everything that I learned from all the research and the training that I did, I obviously like applied in my team. And so, yeah, that's kind of like what we want to touch on. And currently, I run a coaching practice, and we also have a project that I'm working together with Chavi, which is Pole Position OS, which I mentioned a little bit earlier. It's more an amalgamation of both our expertise and our experience in both of our domains. Him in Formula One, as a Formula One racing director, and also for me in flow and in my sports and in companies. So yeah, that is that's basically it. So I'm gonna have hand it over to Chevy. He's gonna talk about like what high performance team is. There you go.
Yeah, high performance team. That is, I think, something that we should mention what it means. At least in the Formula One perspective, we hear about high performance team not in F1 and sports, but also in a lot of different businesses now today. We can see in LinkedIn leaders able to build and operate a high performance team. So for us, it will be the ability to continuously reach and operate at the optimum in a specific activity or in a specific discipline. And when we look at the perspective of F1, so that will be what we set certain goal, certain target in terms of what you want to achieve in the championship battle, and then it will be operating at the optimum of that team just to achieve that. And that obviously everyone wants to win, but doesn't necessarily mean to win, because we need to be realistic. And then different teams, they will have different level of different budgets, different level of resources, different level of manpower. So for each team, that optimum, it may be at a different level, and it doesn't mean that they don't operate at a high performance level. Every team in Formula One, probably all of them, they're high performance teams. In some instances, when there's a bit of a crisis, a lot of changes, you lose a bit. Probably you lose a bit that status, but they all operate as a high performance team. So it's basically, we can say, it's about getting the best of what you have got in the given circumstances. And then we've got these goals, we've got a target. That target is a moving target, because when we achieve, let's say, if a team is P6 the previous season, now you will set a goal to be P4, for example. Once you achieve the P4, then it will be next target. You want to be P2. And ultimately, everyone would like to win the championship. So that target is a moving target. And that's how the team should be always operating to the optimum, achieving these targets. Unfortunately, everyone is doing the same, so that's why it gets so difficult. Everyone wants to win, and only one can win. So it's always a matter of okay, how much you are improving, but then how does it look relative to everyone else? No, and then you are competing with all the competitors. In that case, there are 10 teams. Next year will be 11 teams, but that's what it means. High performance team. Nash, to you.
Okay, before I continue, I guess I just want to clarify as well that at the end of this session, the goal is for you to be able to know, to walk away with how to think like an F1 team, how to operate like an F1 team, and how to cultivate a culture of high performance, how to make high performance your default. All right, so I'm going to continue. And since my expertise is in flow, I'm going to talk about what are the benefits of flow, specifically individually, because a team is composed of individuals. So based on research, McKinsey's research, 500% increase in executives' productivity, 3 days of heightened creativity after flow state, 490% faster skill acquisition, 430% in creative problem solving. So, can you imagine whenever you get in flow or when you're working and you're in flow, you're performing at a really high level without burnout because you're performing optimally. I'm going to get into that a little bit, but I just thought I'd share this with you so you can kind of have a better idea of why we are talking in flow, why we're talking about flow, and why it is necessary to train, why it is a mental skill that everyone individually needs to train if you want to peak perform sustainably at a really long time, minus overwhelm, minus burnout. Because let's face it, we are a burnout and anxious generation. And at the end of the day, honestly, hard work is not enough. Hard work is not all there is. All right, I'm going to continue. What is flow state? Okay, to be simplistic, this is how I would define flow state. There's a lot of definitions, but flow state is an optimal state of consciousness when peak performance happens. When I'm performing at my peak, my mental state of consciousness is at its optimal state. What does that mean? Right. Okay. I'm fully engaged in the task at hand. I'm not thinking about anything else. So the photo that I'm showing right now is me on the rock climbing. When I'm rock climbing, it's my main flow activity. I have a challenge at hand. I have a task at hand, which is to go to the anchor, right? I'm fully engaged with whatever it is that I'm doing. There's this challenge skills balance whereby the challenge in front of me is not too high that it overwhelms me and I'm paralyzed, but it's also not too low that it bores me. It's just right at just right above my skill level where I'm using my skills to the utmost, and it forces me, it pulls my attention to the now, right? There's loss of self-consciousness. I'm not really self-conscious. The self-critical thoughts shut off. We call it transient hypofrontality, right? There's heightened awareness because my executive functioning or prefrontal cortex shuts off, right? The self-critical thoughts shuts off. My awareness heightens. That means I'm right here right now and I'm able to problem solve in spite of all my emotions, my heightened emotions, where in spite of me putting myself intentionally putting myself at a high stress situation. right? I have clarity of thought. I'm able to problem solve with whatever it is that I have at hand, right? Um, I'm operating on instinct. I'm operating on instinct, right? I'm not like really thinking too much. I can like problem solve again with whatever I have in the here and now, right? I'm not like, oh, should I do this? Should I do this? No, I have no time for that. Right. Because I get immediate feedback, I'm gonna fall if I do that. Oh, you know that like all these thoughts just paralyze you. No, you have no time for that. That says accurate split second decision making. And there's this timelessness. When you are in flow and you're putting yourself in a high stakes situation where the stakes are a situation where the stakes are high, right? Somehow, because it's either you're in flow or you die. Either I fall. It's this feeling of death. So I'm just using rock climbing as a metaphor. Um, Somehow I feel like time slows down and I'm able to problem solve right there. I'm not second guessing myself. Right? That is flow. Imagine if you're able to do that. This is why I go back earlier, the benefits of flow. And this is why my productivity increases. This is why there's heightened creativity. My skill acquisition goes high up, goes through the roof. There's creative problem solving. Why? Why do I feel that way? Because the main thing that holds us back, that paralyzes us from peak performance, is us. We're just getting in the way. We have like all these, imposter syndromes, self-critical thoughts. What would they think? What would they like? No, it shuts off. You just go. You go on intuition. So this kind of like I'm just gonna go through this real quick so I don't bore you too much. But yeah, this is what I was saying about like challenge skills balance. Okay. Um, so what is the difference between individual flow and group flow?
Yeah.
Okay. So you want to go ahead, Chevy?
No, no, you cover that. If yeah,
I'm gonna I'm gonna breeze through this real quick.
yes, yeah,
Okay. So imagine if all these individuals are in flow, but together, right? So individually they are in flow, but then they come together. So instead of the person having their own challenge personally, they have like this blending of egos. Here, I'm just gonna read this. So group flow. Group flow is when a team, it's rhythm. You get in sync. Everyone's synced, locked in, building off of each other like a world-class jazz band when they do their improv, a championship sports team, or an elite F1. So what does it feel like? Conversations are seamless. No one's interrupting, just amplifying. The team moves fast without breaking. Decisions feel intuitive. Everyone's so present, it's like the group has one shared mind. Ego takes a backseat, the mission drives everything. I just want to say hi to Gerardo from Brazil. We have someone in the comments. All right. So how does this happen? It happens when goals are aligned. The entire team, all the individuals in the team, they know where they're going. They know that they're going to point B. Everyone is going towards point B. But then it's like every individual, they complement each other, right? They complement each other with their strengths and their weaknesses. It's like everyone is a piece of the puzzle and everyone goes towards point B, whatever that means individually, whatever that means as a team. But they know where they're going. It's clear for them. The communication is open. Everyone's clear on their role, what they play, the role they play. They don't step on each other. They know that this is my piece. I'm going to play this really well. You do your piece, you play it really, really well. I'm not going to step on your toes. I'm not going to go beyond my boundaries. I stay in my space, but I do it really well. You do it real well. We go there together. All right, there's trust, risk, and creative tension, but zero drama. I just want to clarify that there's zero drama. How does this happen? You know that, because the communication is open, there's trust, there's like underneath is psychological safety. As a leader, you as a leader driving the team, you want to create psychological safety for your team, right? That you trust every individual that they're going to perform at their best. But at times when they mess up, there's a psychological safety that you will still trust them the next time. And you're going to hold their hand or like coach them, whatever it is, so that they don't mess up the next time. There's no blame culture. All right. Chevy?
Yeah. So here we have got in terms of high performance, saying an individual versus a team, no, and it will be following what Nash was saying about flow, individual or team as well. If we look at one single individual just doing performing an activity, discipline, most of them, most of sports, even if it's one individual, they have got a team behind on the background that is supporting or helping just to achieve that optimum performance during the activity. But when the activity is happening, you have got the single individual executing the performance. Still, I think the challenge is massive, is very big. Let's say if I want to compete in running, so it will be me running, but then I will have probably a team with me, just helping me to train with the nutrition, just mentally as well to get prepared. But then is I'm myself on my own running. When we look, then a high performance team, we have got multiple people that are executing the performance, not only in the preparation, but in real time, contributing to the outcome, to this performance, and everyone needs to be at the optimum. Otherwise, if you have got 90% of the optimum or just two or three, they're not at the optimum, it doesn't work. So that's when everything gets a bit more complex. The challenge escalates to another level when you have a high performance team, because they need to be simultaneously all very well synchronized. In also we can say that in a high performance team, some of the things that they are very crucial is when we talk about this goal, this target, and this is the priority number one, to be aligned on that one, no? And I was saying everyone wants to win, but you need to be realistic, and it's a bit what Nash was saying in terms of the challenge. If at the moment you have got, with what you have got, you cannot win, then if you set a target too high, you will burn everyone. It will not work. So you need to be realistic. You need to push the boundaries, but to push the boundaries to achieve that flow. If you go too far, you just will everything will collapse. That with one single individual is very difficult. But imagine when you have got a team, is even more difficult, because you need to make sure that everyone is aligned on that challenge, on the goals that you want to you will set. And here's where we say that managing the expectations is very important, and this is something that in especially for us in Formula One is very important across the organization. Then also Naj was mentioning on the organization, on the role definition. This is something that we will talk later on. The integration of the individuals. You have got the teams, different departments, and then not only how you will organize them, but how they will be interlinked, different departments, just to make sure that they align and everything they can be well synchronized. Crucial will be also communication. We said about the trust as well, team culture, values, and also another thing that Nash was saying, you want everyone to be confident to push. No? So all these are all the things that when you have got an individual or you have got a team, both are big challenges, but with a team, because you have got multiple individuals, challenge becomes much bigger, and that's what we're interested in and what we'll discuss more in detail. Okay, Nash?
I think this is
Okay,
still you, Chevy.
yes. So now we say, talk about high performance individuals and then high performance team, and why Formula One, we say, could be the ultimate or a good example as a high performance team. We say that when you have got an individual that should perform at very high level at the optimum, is already a big challenge. When you have got a team, becomes bigger challenge. It is escalating because it's more difficult to bring everyone together. So if you look at the current Formula One teams, years ago, 15, 20 years ago, there were big organizations, 300 to 500 people. Today, teams have got more than 1,000 people. And even teams now, they are growing. The smaller teams, there were about 700 people, but everyone should be converging towards 1,000. And if you include with the power unit, it's even 1,003 or 400. So the more people that you have got, then it becomes more and more difficult to work as a one. You have got all this group of people that they will need to develop, they will need to design, they will need to produce, and then they will need to race these two cars during the Formula One season and every year starting the process. So to have such a big group of people, it becomes complex. On top of that, I think we can say that is adding to the challenge. Formula One is a world championship. So then you have got a large group of people. You have, because it's a world championship, you have got different cultures. You have got people different ages, genders. You have different background, professional backgrounds. That all that will be very good because we'll have a lot of different inputs, a lot of different views. So that can be very, very productive. But don't underestimate the challenge to bring everything together. And also because motorsport, there's always a lot of passion involved as well. So all that is good, but it's also it becomes a bit more difficult in some occasions. It can be quite emotional, so all that needs to be put to one side and make sure that everything works stable and everything goes working together to achieve the one team, one dream. No, and then another thing that is adding more difficulty as well is if you have got all this big group of people, very different group of characters, personalities, is all good. Everything can be all very very interesting. But then, if you are working in a project that you have got a lot of time, maybe a bit easier to manage to put everything together. You have got a bit more margin. If you look the motorsport Formula One business, everything is moving extremely fast. You have got in one season 24 races. During these 24 races, you are already developing the next year's car as well. And sometimes you have got 3 races in 3 weeks. So you imagine you have got a problem in one race. You need to understand what was the problem, and you need to decide what you are going to do and do it in few days. And you have got 1,000 people or 1,000 plus people to react on that. So imagine the inertia that that will have. And sometimes when you need to take decisions, take action to change something, it can be quite difficult. So even if it's a big group of people and the size of the team, here the idea is you want to work as a high performance team, how you engineer that to be dynamic as you can, and that will give you the advantage to operate always at this optimum level that we say, achieving or to operate in flow. Okay, Nash, go on that one as well. Pit stop here. I think everyone is familiar with the pit stops, and I wanted to give this example because okay, Formula One team, as I said, is it's a large organizations, is over 1,000 people, but what everyone can see on TV, and it's easy to visualize how a high performance team work, is the race pit stops, and we can see that how everything, because as I say, is very visual. No, the pit stops are a crew of 20 plus people involved. It takes only about it should take only about 2 seconds, and is to change the 4 tires. And when we see a pit stop on TV during the race, when everything goes well, there is a lot of harmony. Everything goes very fluid. There is a clear roles, who does what, and you can see that there's a full trust between all of them, all the work colleagues. So to achieve that, there is a very clear communication on all the channels. All the You need to imagine that in terms of communication, processes, every movement, every step they do, from the point where there's been a call from the chief engineer or the strategy that okay, we'll box this car now or both cars now, until the time that the crew will take the tires and will go to change the tires on the pit lane. So all these steps, everything has been discussed, has been agreed, has been formalized, and has been trained hundreds of times just to make sure that will be what Nash was explaining before about the flow. It needs to be just natural. It just happens. And when you see people changing all of them, they are connected. No? The more clear that you can see is the ones you have got three per corner, and one on the wheel gun, one is removing the tire, and one is fitting the other tire. So it's full thrust, and they're all connected between them. But it's the same for the front and rear jack when they need to leave the car, or the same with the driver. The driver needs to stop exactly in position, because if he's a bit 50 or 60 centimeters further forwards or backwards, then it will have an impact on how the wheel guns can go into position to untighten the wheel. So all that will take a hit then in the performance. But the same in the with the communication. We have seen in some occasions that, especially some chaotic races, when there is a safety car or rain, teams are prepared for all the scenarios, but not every time everything is perfect. So we have seen that, especially is very visual, the people around the car, that they look at each other, they don't understand, or a bit of a confusion of what's going on, is because one of the communication channels probably has been blocked, or there's some information missing, and then people don't know what to do. So teams are trained to avoid all that, but obviously in some circumstances things can happen. So also we say that it's only 2 seconds. So it seems like, okay, I don't need really much training because it's only 2 seconds. It should be quite straightforward to execute something like this. But you cannot imagine the work that is in the background to execute this action, this activity in these 2 seconds. And we are not talking about the performance in individual event, because when we said about high performance is the ability to consistently achieve that. And this is the difficulty, to be consistent at that level, no? And that's why it needs so much training with the people, with the development on the hardware as well. What do you need to be more user friendly to for the operators? Communication as well, just to make sure that we don't have any clashes. And it starts already all the calls on which sequence that will we make. Also, when we talk about how the people will be sitting in the garage, because maybe they call for one car, maybe you have two cars coming at the same time, so they need to stand up and pick up two sets of tires, and everyone needs to know which set of tire for from which car, and how to bring it to the pit lane without clashing between them. So everything, when we look in TV, it looks very smooth, but to achieve that, there is a lot of repetition during the race weekend. They do a lot of training in the mornings or evening, and back at the factory, also a lot of training. Not only repetition of the pit stop, but there's also fitness training. Is also mental preparation. There is nutrition also helping it to consider thing that the crews are traveling around the world, so a lot of hours traveling, different time zones, so all the jet lag and all that. When people feel tired, if they are not 100%, then it will not work. And they all need to go together. If you have got three corners, they go very fast, and one is slow, or only one individual on that corner is slow, that's it. The pit stop is slow. So it's always all everything needs to be synchronized and together. There will be a very clear target of what they need to achieve, at which speed, which level of consistency, and there is a very direct feedback as well. So for that will be a lot of in the training. We have got a lot of data. They can look at that data from the sensors that we have got on the car, on the wheel guns, video analysis as well. So with this feedback, then okay, let's train again and achieve the level of performance with the consistency required, and improving the like this step by step. Okay, Nash.
Okay, so if you notice, Chevy pointed out a lot of complexity and how it is to what it takes to run a pit stop. Because what we see on TV, like a pit stop, when the cars um, get their tires changed, and then there's a couple of people. If you're not familiar with F1, I'm not an expert on F1, but I'm just trying to say it in a very simplified way, like for myself. We have like people who are changing the tires, we're doing this wheel gun, all these things, right? Like we see it and it looks very easy, as if, it's nothing because it only takes 2 seconds. But the amount of training and work and thought it takes to make it look easy was hard. Why? Heavy mentioned earlier that they train so much, they calculate everything, they have race strategy, all of that. They time everything down to the last second, right? Um, they train so much that that skill, whatever your role is in the puzzle, right? You you train it so much that it gets so deeply embedded into the system. It gets so deeply embedded into the person's system, in the system as a team, right? So they know the roles, they know the role they're going to play, they know how to perform it, they just execute, right? You got to train it so deeply into the system that it becomes second nature. It becomes a part of you, it becomes who you are. That way, when it's game time, when it's time to execute, when you have to perform, the stakes are high. You don't have to think, you just execute and you trust your training. That's how you make a high performance team. There's no friction, there is no drag, there's no unnecessary communication. No, you operate on instinct. You look at each other, you already know what to do, right? Because there's already like before that happened, again, there was so much training, so much workshop involved. You know what you need to do, you know where you're going, you know what the goal is, you know how to operate, and you know how to operate it really, really well. Um, that's kind of like what I want to say on that pit stop crew and why you got to be in group flow. Everyone has to be in flow. If one if one individual is not in flow, like Chevy mentioned earlier, if one of the wheel gun guys, even if the driver was not paying attention, let's just say, and everyone is already ready and he didn't react that fast, they're not in flow, right? So that's the idea. There's a lot of complexity. The challenge is high, but the skills are also very high. How to think like an F1 team. So I'm going to touch on this a little bit before I have Chevy talk. So part of what we're doing is called pole position operating system, where we train and consult and we talk about the pole position operating system, right? It's like a kind of like a plug and play system where we train your team, consult with your team on how to get your team to operate as one, how to embed a flow culture, a high performance culture, so that high performance excellence will become your default, not like a one time thing, right? You don't want to rely your performance on hope and guesswork. You want to train it. It has to be in the culture. Some of the things that we talk about, we cover within that operating system. Give me 1 second here. To have a look at that chart. So we train on the inner game, the mindset, and the outer game, which is the execution. What it is to run group flow. We have a play group, mental resilience, the the flow drivers for group flow, the communication, how to communicate, communication group and feedback, something like that. So go out. I'm not gonna touch on it a lot. And then how to operate like an F1 team. I'll have you go at this first, Trevi, and then I'll go over the flow drivers.
Yeah, if you can go back to the thing like an F1 team, the previous page. So we're talking about first. I mentioned about the pit stop. Pit stop is just a small part of is very visual, but we need to think that the entire Formula One team will work as the pit stop. We need to achieve that level of everything gets natural, automatic, and that's how we will achieve that such a large team can be dynamic. So for that one, I think first the way how we do is we need to be aware of what we have and where do we stand in terms of that will mean in terms of okay, as a team, what have we got? Manpower in terms of tools, digitalization, infrastructure, resources. What have we got? And then we need to know the competition. What have they got? So once we see what have we got and what they have got, then you define the gap. Okay, and then once you define the gap, then there is we need clarity and transparency of okay, what are we going to do in terms of short, mid, and long term to have a roadmap. And this is what we mentioned before. We really need a full alignment, the entire organization. How are we going to do that? How do we see that? Because and that's not an easy exercise when you've got a large organization. But it is very important. Otherwise, it will be an issue with the expectations that we have got. So once we define that, then you say the gap, and we set our target, our goal. We need to define okay, what are we going to do to do, how and when are we going to do. Okay, and it's important to here to consider okay, we've got a baseline plan, but we'll need to consider a lot of potential different scenarios. One thing is what you want to do, but because we will be racing, we'll be fighting in an environment where you have got different external factors that can have an effect, and also what the competitors will do also will have an effect. So you need to prepare for all that. And here it's not only talking about the race weekends or the races, because the race in Formula One is all across the team. We have got the races also in the development, the races also in design, in production, in logistics. Everything is part of that. And to give you just an example as well, because you have got so many races together. If you do some development, if you can develop faster, or you can design, produce faster. Let's say I can have an upgrade 3 days earlier. Okay, 3 days earlier, it could mean that I've got an upgrade one race earlier, and that upgrade could be even if it's 50 milliseconds or 1/10 of a second faster lap time. That could mean that I could gain a position, and that position could be points. So it's all about that. Okay, it's just, and that's why I say that the race is not only on the track. The race starts already at the factory, and is all across the organization. And it's not only, it could be that design is working very well, but then either production or with the logistics, we lose some time. If you lose time, then you're losing overall team performance. Or it could be that we are very fast, but we spend a lot of money to produce parts. You need to be efficient. You have got now we've got the budget cap, but even if you haven't got a budget cap, most teams they will have a limitation on the budget. Sure, you have got the sponsors and you can spend some money, but if for the same money you can produce more parts, that will be more performance. So all that, this is the race as well. So all these parts, what we see is on TV is the race or the pit stop, but it's the same across the entire organization, and that's why the entire team needs to be working at high performance, and you need to be in flow. Basically, it will require a lot of iterations and a lot of repetition just to be, everything needs to be very, very dynamic, very fluid, become natural. And I was saying that you need to be prepared for the unknown. No? In Formula One, as, as I said, there are a lot of external factors, um, because maybe the track conditions, maybe the tire supply is changing the tires, or the tarmac, there's new tarmac, different characteristics, different weather conditions, changeable conditions. Maybe you're expecting that it will be dry, but actually there is wet. And how the competitors, what they will do, maybe they bring updates that you didn't expect, so you need to adjust what you will do. So what we prepare all the time is just trying to prepare for the unknown. Actually, you need to expect the unknown, and try to take the opportunity. This is about the high performance. No, if when something is happening, you need to think about it. That's it. You cannot be in flow. It needs to be natural. Something is happening, but you are prepared for it, and that's it. And here the challenge is not one individual. If it was one individual, you can be prepared, but you need everyone to be prepared. Otherwise, it will not work. You will be ready, but no one will follow you. And you need to engineer that. How can you achieve that team that is able to react so quickly and be so natural, like it happens in a pit stop, but for all the different scenarios that happens from design until execution at the racetrack. Okay, Nash.
All right. So let's talk about everything. I hope you have learned a lot more about what it takes to run an F1 team and how you can apply that to your team. Um, so now let's talk about why you need to cultivate group flow and how do you cultivate that so that everyone can perform at a really high level and operate as one, like an F1 racing team, in spite of all the complexity, in spite of all the unknowns, in spite of all the variables, you're still able to perform at a really high level, right? Like if you have an organization, a trading company, if you're a law firm, I don't know, whatever your organization is, or if you're a startup company, like there's so many moving objects, so many, everything is moving. You also have a moving target, right? But how do you develop, cultivate a culture, a high performance culture, but also how do you get everyone individually to have like a really strong mental fortitude? All right, let's talk about the flow drivers, specific for group flow. Shared goals. Everyone knows what race we're trying to win, whatever that means to you. Everyone knows what point B is, what point B looks like, what direction were you going towards. Shared goals is provides direction, right? It provides a direction, so everyone's directions. It'll guide everyone's, or it directs everyone's behavior. They know where they're going, basically. They're not confused. They're not just showing up at work just to show up at work because it's good, right? You don't want people like that. You want everyone to be fully engaged in a challenge, fully engaged in their tasks. Number two, close listening. And again, I'm talking to you as a leader. I'm talking to you as a startup founder, as a CEO, whatever it is that you're doing, where you're leading a company, you're leading a team. So it says here, team radio and F1, everyone listens actively, not reactively. Everyone pays attention. They're not just reacting to what everyone's saying, right? They pay attention so that they can like problem solve what to do next within their role, right? Number three, there's this a yes and culture, right? You want to have yes, you may build a competition within your team, but it's not to keep everyone engaged, but it's not a combative competition, right? It's more of a collaborative competition where they say iron sharpens iron, where the competition sharpens each other, right? So, yes, and strategy shifts mid race, everyone adapts together, right? It's a yes and instead of like, oh, hey, I have an idea. Let's say I would talk to Trevi, oh, Trevi, I have an idea. What if we do this? And he would just like stop me. Oh, no, Nash, I don't think that's a good idea. Da, da. No, the how you do that in a meeting. Oh, I have an idea. You build off on each other's idea because in the beginning you have the solution as a leader. You propose, okay, this is the problem we need to solve. What do you have to say? What do you have to say? What do you have to say? Everyone builds off of each other. There are no bad ideas. What does that mean? Right? Like there are no bad, you let each other talk, build off of each other, but also refine each other's ideas. And at the end of the day, best ideas win. And at the end of the day, it's going to be actually a collaborative idea, not just one from one person. Equal participation, no weak links. Even the tire guy matters, right? Every single person in their team plays a huge role, and a significant role. Without, for example, the tire person, the tire guy who does that, can you imagine? And an F1, right? It's so significant. Familiarity and trust built through reps, not just pep talks. So there's certain, you need to kind of like cultivate a culture where there is familiarity with each other. That's why if you've worked together for a long time, you kind of already know how to operate together, how to work together. But there's also a sense of trust that, hey, I'm giving you this feedback not because I want to destroy your ego, but because this is needful, and I'm giving you this feedback because this is going to help us as a team, but it will also help you individually. But the intention is good, right? Like, how do you cultivate that? You cultivate that in the culture. And as a leader, that is your responsibility. Okay. There's open communication. It's quite related to what I said earlier. But it's more so about like instant feedback. I think I mentioned last time where if as a company, you only do annual assessment, it doesn't make sense. It does not make sense at all. Why? How will the person know you assess the person the entire time? There is no time for course correction. There is no time to coach the person. It's already over. The year's already over. And then he has another year. It's not immediate feedback, right? For example, in F1 race, right? They get immediate feedback. They get feedback instantly, right? If one of them mess up, they know immediately within that race, within that day, within that time. So they have time to course correct, do it again, do it better the next time, do it better the next time. There's a lot of time for course correction and iteration. As a company, you don't want to wait after 1 year to assess your team, give to tell them where they've done wrong or how they can do better. And you need to build like a coaching culture, right? So that they don't fear like they there's they don't feel fearful. They feel like, okay, I can trust this person. I can trust my leader to tell him, hey, right, I'm willing to course correct. Okay, right, I'm willing to listen to what you have to say. Okay, number 7 is blended egos. The mission comes first, not the individual credit. It's not one person's win. It's everyone's win because everyone contributed, right? The egos blend. There's no one is less important. No one is more important. Everyone is important because the most important thing is the mission, not the individual. Risk, pushing the edge without crashing the car of a team. Risk, it's calculated risk. There has to be a little bit of risk. You can't just, especially this day and age, really, it's so competitive. You can't really just play it safe. You have to build a culture where there's a certain tolerance for risk. There's a space for one of the team, one, for people to take calculated risk. Why? Because that's how you can innovate, right? If you're just follow what everyone's doing, what the market is doing, yeah, either you evolve or you die. So how do you evolve? You take risk, right? But still, if the person makes a mistake, one of the people makes mistakes, there is no blame game, right? You still again go back to establishing a culture of trust and psychological safety. And lastly, if you're able to go through all of these 9 things, you create a rhythm. F1 teams move with a tempo even under chaos. Why? Because they trust their training. Even when everything else is chaotic, you go back to your training. You trust that you know that you know that you know. As a leader, you trust your team that they know that they know that they know. How? Because you train them so much. It's so deeply embedded into their system, right? Okay. So how do we cultivate this? Do you have anything to share before I continue, Chevy?
Yeah, just few couple of points on this operating like a Formula One team. Want to mention that first I said, okay, how we think as an F1 team, we need to see what have we got, where do we stand, and then the competition. So we defined that gap, and then we set the goal, what we will do, how and when. So here now, okay, operating like a Formula One team. So we'll look at our organization, and we'll see, okay, if we need to change, adapt something in terms of what will be our leadership structure. We need to empower our leaders, and then the tools that we'll use in terms of the tools to operate at the factory or at the track, but also all the software tools that we'll use. And across the different departments, it's important that we need to talk the same language. Okay, for us, if it's on the aero side, mechanical systems, they need to use a common language, because whatever you will do in one area probably will have an impact on other areas, and everything needs to be. So we have to define then, teams define some what will be the structure on the meetings, communication channels, just to make sure that all the information is shared across and agreed, decided, just to take steps into development. This is at the factory, but also at the track as well. When they put the cars together, when they're deciding the configuration on the programs, you have got input from multiple areas. And because if you want to operate at the high level, at the optimum, then you need to go in very fine detail. So you have areas working just on the tires, some areas working only on the vehicle dynamics, some aspects, some engineers will work only on the driver performance, for example, some on the competitor analysis, because at the end of the day, you are competing against them. So it's good. You want to extract your optimum performance, but all the time you want to see where the competitors are as well, just to always monitor that gap that we said before. So all that is how we'll do. And then for that, it will be important to have, we mentioned before, these clear roles, responsibilities, accountability, and very important, mentioned already several times, but to empower the leaders, because you have got the team, the organization is very big. You have got a lot of people, and if you don't have a good organization, a good structure, it will take. You have too much inertia, so it needs to be very dynamic how everything is moving. Otherwise, you have like only one or two individuals that want to do something, but no one is following. So how do we do that? It needs to be on a way that everything is well synchronized, and then we need to define all the processes and procedures. Everything needs to be formalized. If you change, for some reason you need to change some people, everything needs to be in place that someone could step in and already go into this new task. Nowadays, I think probably in most industries, but in Formula One, all the teams, they work in a similar way, but they are not the same. No? You change from one team to another one, things will be similar, but they're not the same. And something that is not the same for sure is the people. So if teams change a lot of people, it will take some time to operate like like a high performance team. You can have all the system, but then it takes few iterations and time to put everything together. And if you keep changing, you will never reach the level of stability, consistency to to operate in flow. No, is what Nash was mentioning. For example, if I go trackside and when we prepare run programs or when we prepare the race, to several meetings on okay, this is a plan and this is what we will do, but if that happens, then we may do that, or we may do something else, and there will be then input from different departments, and we need to adjust. We'll do a lot of iterations, and everyone needs to be aligned on that one, and we'll repeat that several times, and from before the race weekend until the point that we'll have to execute that plan. So there will be several iterations, either because to optimize or because something has been changing. But on all these repetitions, everyone is somehow gets into your, you get more familiar, and then everyone, when will have to execute that, it will be more natural. So that goes all, not only at the track, but also at the factory. And it's the same we mentioned for the pit stop. It's all about training and be ready and to execute in a natural way. No? Yeah, that's what I wanted to mention, Nash.
Thanks, Trevi. All right, so we're already at the end of the last part of the session, and we're gonna run through it. So this is gonna be your main takeaways, hopefully. How do you, after all of these things that we talked about, how do you cultivate a high performance culture so that it becomes your default? Three things. Number one, shared mission. Very, very important. And as a leader, this comes from you. And I think we already know that. Align around a shared mission. Need to clearly communicate what point B looks like, where you're going. This will direct everyone's behavior. Clarity is a launch pad for flow, right? Make sure everyone knows why, the why behind the work. Get obsessive, get obsessive about shared goals, role clarity, and purpose. When the teams rows in the same direction, momentum builds fast. So I want to go back to this. Can you imagine if one of them rows towards the wrong direction? What would happen? Absolutely not flow. So everyone needs to know the role they play. Everyone needs to know where they're going. Everyone needs to play it really well. I want to embed that in the culture. Okay. You don't want people, you want to get individuals engaged, right? A mission, having a shared mission, like makes them feel alive because they know what their purpose is in coming into work. Safe space. This is what I think I have mentioned multiple times. If you want to get out of if you want to get the best your teams, out of your team members, you as a leader is your responsibility to create the psychological safety and give them fast feedback loop. Flow needs trust and data. If they don't know where they did wrong, if they cannot get honest feedback from you, you don't give them feedback as a leader, they don't know what you know, they have no idea whether they're doing it wrong. They're not going to be able to trust you, right? If there's too much time, too much gap in between the wrong thing and the feedback, it's pointless. It already expired. Foster a culture where people can speak up, take risks, and screw up without fear. Pair that with real time feedback, daily stand ups, postmortems, live dashboards, so they know where they're at and they know where they're going. And they would know what their gap is between where they are and where they're going, where they are in the team and where the team should be going. That has to become constantly communicated, not just expected, but communicated. So the team stays aligned and in sync. And lastly, a solid rhythm. If you're able to establish all those two things, you can develop solid rhythm. But you don't expect it, you design it, right? You engineer it, you design it. It has to be intentional. It doesn't happen on its own. Flow is a tempo, not a frenzy. Set rituals and systems that support focused work, deep work blocks, async comms, sync communication, sprint cycles. When your teams know the beat, they start moving like a unit. And a lot of these things that I talk about is what we cover in pole position operation system. So if you're curious, please feel free to reach out to me. Reach out to me or Chevy. You can reach out to us on LinkedIn or send us a DM or email. Flo at nashmaiwala.com. That is my email. Again, that's Flo at nashmaiwala.com. So I go back. Shared mission, safe space, solid rhythm. If you don't know how to apply this in your team, we can come run a workshop, train your team, and train you as well, um, to be able to cultivate a culture of high performance and make it your default. All right. Not sure if we have time for Q&A, but maybe we're gonna give a little bit of space for Q&A. If you guys have any questions, you can
I've
jump in
got
the
a couple of
comments.
Actually, I've got a couple of points as well before
Oh
we
yes,
finish.
before we sorry, Chevy. Go for it.
I just wanted to say that with this high performance, that also to finish that there are no magic bullets. Okay, for this high performance and for a team building and transforming towards to achieve that level, to operate at the optimum performance, optimum level, to achieve this high performance team. It will take a lot of effort. It takes a lot of time, and it will only be achieved when you reach that sustainability, consistency with the team. And for that, you will need everybody at all levels to be fully engaged with what we want to do. No? And then every individual will need to develop, improve. They need to interact. They need to share to achieve that global improvement. And we mentioned before, is absolutely there is no place for ego as well, as otherwise if there start to be egos and in an environment like Formula One, sometimes that is difficult, becomes critical, and can cause a lot of issues. But that's something that it cannot. If that's happening, then there will be no flow on that team. So it will be very important empowering the feedback we mentioned, listening as well, and well-being, especially when it's a very demanding environment. We just need to make sure that when we have got, if we want to have a high performance team, every individual needs to be treated like a high performance athlete. Then you want to have everyone that is at 100% all the time. Otherwise, you will just burn people, and it will not work. So that's very important, and especially now you can see a lot of Formula One teams, all the Formula One teams, I will say, they take that into real consideration with all the traveling and being people being rested, and just how we can control better, manage the jet lag, all the nutrition, because then everyone is needs to perform like an athlete. It's not only on the physical side, but it's also on the mental side. Everything is performance, and we said it's not only about the pit stop. Then it's across the whole organization. Okay, it's the entire race. Yeah, that's from my side, Nash. Thank you.
Thank you, Chevy. Thanks for wrapping that up. I almost forgot that part. All right. So we're open for questions if you guys want to jump in the comments. If not, I'm just going to go over a little bit about what pole position operating system is. So it's a step-by-step system designed to engineer group flow so teams think and move as one. If you have a startup, if you're a law firm, if you run a team where the stakes are high, which is like pretty much everyone, you have a business. Um, you need flow position. Oh, you need flow position, pole position operating system. So it's about embedding precision systems and rituals inspired by F1 championship teams, build mental resilience and decision-making frameworks for high-stakes moments. Upgrade your culture, team culture, mindset, and identity to prepare like the best in the world. All right, that is pole position operating system. And this is who we work with, built for teams who play to win. If you're the leader of a team, a company, this is who we want to work with. And yeah, I guess we end here. Any questions? If not, feel free to reach out to me or to Chevy. Thanks for joining, Luciano. Thank you very much. If you have any more questions, feel free to reach out. Dump in the comments, then a DM. Yeah,
Thank you. Thank
I
you
think
all.
we're good. Thank you very much, guys. We're going to end the stream now.